Patrick Henry, that fire-breathing son of Virginia, stood in a candlelit room filled with men who weren't entirely sure whether they wanted to fight a war or negotiate themselves a slightly cushier arrangement under the British crown. He saw the hedging, the stomach-turning caution, the craven balancing act between comfort and duty, and he made a declaration, not of universal truth, but of personal resolve. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. It was not a demand that others join him in martyrdom. It was not a rallying cry to force unity under his own banner. It was just a man standing alone, announcing with clarity that his freedom to exist, to think, to speak was non-negotiable. If he could not have that, then what was life worth? And so we arrive here some 2.5 centuries later, squinting at the same damn problem. Tyranny creeping in, but not with redcoats and musket fire, but with censorship wrapped in good intentions, with manufactured outrage that devours dissent, with an economy of speech dictated by who holds the power to silence. The First Amendment, that hallowed bit of ink at the top of the great American experiment, has always been the purest distillation of our national defiance. For all our sins, our failures, our endless hypocrisy, we have, at least in theory, always been able to stand and say what we believe to be true, to mock those in power, to drag our leaders through the filth of satire, to call out injustice wherever we saw it. But now something rotten grows in the heart of our republic. We have traded principled defiance for partisan speech codes. We have birthed a culture where everyone is a victim, where speech is treated not as a great tool of liberation, but as a dangerous weapon that must be controlled. And it is a partisan sickness, a shared infection of cowardice. On one side, we have the self-righteous crusaders who have mistaken moral superiority for legal authority, believing that discomfort is a constitutional violation and that words are indistinguishable from violence. To them, freedom of speech is a conditional privilege, granted only if it does not offend, does not challenge, does not disrupt the delicate sensibilities of the professionally outraged. And on the other side, we have the would-be authoritarians wrapped in the flag, pounding their chests about freedom while drafting laws to criminalize dissent, to silence journalists, to demand allegiance under threat of punishment. They stand on debate stages preaching the gospel of free speech, and then turn around and cry for book bans, loyalty oaths, and nationalistic purity tests. They want freedom for themselves, but obedience from everyone else. And in the middle stands the rest of us, watching, waiting, wondering when it became so goddamn difficult for Americans to stomach the reality that speech is often offensive, controversial, and even outright dangerous. That does not make it any less necessary. The test of free speech has never been how easily it can be exercised when it aligns with the popular mood. It has never been about the things we all find palatable. The test of speech is whether it is protected when it spits in the face of everything we believe, when it makes our blood boil, when it makes us furious enough to want to stomp it out. The great blessing of America is not that we all agree. It is that we have the right to stand nose to nose and argue. It is that we are granted by the blood and struggle of generations the unshakable right to disapprove, to dissent, to call our leaders bastards and our institutions corrupt. It is that we can burn our flag in protest while another man salutes it. It is that we can shout at the top of our lungs for or against the system that governs us, and in doing so, we ensure that the very machinery of power remains accountable to the people. But we stand today on the edge of a new reality, a world where nothing is sacred, and worse, nothing is guaranteed. And the moment we permit the silencing of one voice, whether it be the firebrand or the fool, we set the precedent for silencing all. The moment we cheer when an enemy is gagged, we are paving the road to our own eventual suffocation, and the cowards who cheer for the silencing of those they despise will always be surprised when the blade comes for them next. So whether we agree or not, whether we find our words palatable or revolting, We must stand defiant in the face of those who would seek to limit speech. We must fight not just for the speech we approve of, but for the speech we loathe. Because if we do not, if we falter, if we allow the censors to take hold, then the words of Mr. Henry will ring hollow in history's ledger. And again, I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. And let those words be more than a memory. Let them be a dying man's last scream in the desert, because if we lose this fight, history will not remember us as rebels, but just as cowards who whispered prayers and called it peace, defiance till death.